We're on chapter 4 this week, titled Diversion and Probation. The things I want you to take away from this chapter are, well, even before we talk about the things I want you to take away, one of the most, and this is a great chapter because there's a lot of material in it, but it's packed into not very many pages, and it's really easy to understand. And I'm glad it's easy to understand because there's a few things that you want to take on to the next chapter and understand, even when you finish this course. This is one of the things, or these are the things in this chapter that I want you to understand for the rest of your career. Even if you're not in law enforcement, it's good to understand, or you decide not to follow a career in law enforcement. Diversion and probation are things that you need to understand because it makes it easier to move to the next chapter and also to the next one. And there are a few things that you don't have to, but this is one that I want you to understand. So if you have any questions during this chapter, during this week, don't get behind. Ask me so you'll get it and you'll understand it. And I think when we explain a few things here in this short lecture, I think you'll understand it even better. And then by the time you read over the PowerPoints and the chapter and go over the things that's provided, I think you'll be good. So I want you to understand probation and its goals. I want you to be able to explain the reasons for using probation. I want you to understand the different ways in which probation is administered. I want you to know what a revocation hearing is. When you think about diversion, think about the root of the word. When you understand divert, when we know what divert is, that means that you're moving something. So a defendant is diverted. They're actually diverted away from incarceration. And the most frequently used form of diversion is probation. So understand what divert is, and we know divert is to move. So we're moving that defendant away from incarceration. And the most frequently used form of diversion is probation. Probation is used for at least four reasons, and those four, or the four most prevalent reasons, are: it permits the offender to remain in the community for reintegration purposes. Number two, it avoids prison institutionalization and the stigma of incarceration. It's also less expensive. And the last reason we're going to discuss is it's fair. If, if it is fair and an appropriate sentence for offenders whose crimes do not merit incarceration. So maybe incarceration's a little severe for what they did, but the crime still fits the purpose of incarceration. Maybe we can divert them away and make it a more appropriate sentence. So if they mess up again later, then we put them in jail. There are typically five goals shared by most probation programs. Number one is to protect the community by preparing the pre-sentence report. I want you to understand what a pre-sentence report is, and that helps the judge to determine probation alternatives, carry out sanctions imposed by the court, also to conduct a risk needs assessment to identify the level of supervision needed, and there, while we're still on that one, there are different levels of probation. So for different offenders and the things that they've done, some of them are going to be highly watched and supervised. Every move they make, they're going to be watched because they're right at that line where they should have went to jail and they're getting a break. So if they do anything, they're going to go to jail because that judge certainly doesn't want them to be an offender that's out there on probation that commits another crime and has another victim. So number four, support the crime victim by collecting information that describes the losses, suffering, and trauma experienced by the crime victim or the survivors and get them compensated for. I don't think you ever make them whole after, especially a crime, some of the violent crimes, but maybe make it better by getting them taken care of and compensated through those funds. And number five, to coordinate and promote the use of community resources. So understand that probation also attempts to prevent recidivism or rearrest. A simple definition to recidivism would be to rearrest. Does it work? It's arguable, but studies seem to suggest that it does. I want you to understand what a technical violation is. It's not actually a violation of law, but simply a violation of the stipulations of the defendant's probation. It could be something as simple as being in a geographical area or drinking alcohol. These things aren't criminal violations for those of us that aren't on probation. They could be violations of someone's probation terms, and they could send that person back to prison or violate the probation terms and send them to prison. I think if you'll read over the chapter and study the material provided, you'll do fine on the quiz. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Have a great week.